Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the first of our live online TEFL sessions. These are going to be a regular online session taking place twice a week throughout May and June. The sessions are designed to complement your online TEFL course. You can view live at 10 AM or you can listen to a recording which is available in the online TEFL course dashboard. Today's topic is what makes a good teacher, and is being presented by senior UK-TEFL trainer Anna Britton. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation. Please just type in your question in your control panel to the right of your screen, and these will be passed on to Anna. So I think we're ready to begin. I shall hand you over to Anna. Anna, over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much, Lachlan, for introducing me there. It's a real pleasure to see you all this morning, and for those of you watching the recording later, thank you for joining me. So just a little bit of background for those of you who don't know me. My name's Anna. I have been teaching for longer than I care to remember, but I started back in 1996, and I thought I would do it for a couple of years and then I would go and find myself a proper job. Fast forward 24 years and here I am, and I love what I do. So I have lived and worked all over the world, so that's sort of Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, sort of from China all the way down to Indonesia. The only place I haven't really lived or worked is South America. So if you have specific questions about South America, I can answer sort of from friends' experience, but I can't answer from personal experience. But I'm here to try and guide you through the beginning of your TEFL career, and also to answer any questions. As Lachlan said, I'm really happy to take questions. So if you do have a question, just pop it into the question box in your control panel, and I will do my best to answer it either as we're going through the webinar, or there's space at the end as well to answer some questions, to do a sort of a Q&A session. Okay, so without further ado, I think we've got about 15 or so on the call at the moment, which is fantastic. So I am going to just share a little photo with you. There we go, some photos. Now, what I would like you to do, if you can, is just maybe ask a question or make a comment about any of those photos. So have a look at where your question box is. Are you able to just put in a question or make a comment about any of those photos? All right, all of the photos are from my personal teaching experience. So have a look at the photos. Can anybody ask me a question or make a comment about the photos? You'll notice down here. Have I taught in China, Beth? Yes, I have. I have taught in China. And in fact, these are my lovely Chinese students here, who were fabulous. They were coming over to do the top right, the top right picture, Monty, is Uganda. So I was teaching in Uganda, which was an amazing experience. Very religious tolerant country, which is fantastic. Yes, I have, Chloe. I've taught all different levels, different age groups. So I've taught everything from sort of very young learners all the way through to adults, professionals, people doing exams, absolutely. I love teaching pretty much most ages, Safia, great question. don't think there's an age I don't like. They're all good for different reasons, and we'll sort of talk about that more as we go through. So what I wanted to do was just sort of share a flavour of what teaching, what TEFL teaching looks like with these photos. So you'll see that we've got sort of different nationalities, we've taught in different places. It gives you a chance to experience amazing places. So we've got places like sort of visiting the Taj Mahal, which was a particular favourite. But you also find, if you have a look at this bottom picture, the reason I've put that there is because you do find yourself in some very sort of strange places, and often sort of hanging around, waiting to get to different sort of locations. So I wanted to, as I said, just to give you a flavour of what TEFL teaching looks like. What you will see about all of the photos of the teaching of the classrooms is that I am not standing at the front presenting. So there is a lot of action going on in the classrooms, and that's something I really want to sort of to talk to you guys about as we go through the webinars, not just today, but over the next sort of 5 weeks. So let's have a look at what I'd like to sort of cover today. I should say, as we're going through, that all of the photos are my own. They are all from sort of teaching experiences around the world. So I raided my photo archive for the PowerPoint, mainly to make sure that I wasn't breaching any copyright. So I wanted to spend some time today with you just sort of thinking about the qualities of a good teacher. Now, the reason I want to spend some time doing this is because there is no such thing as the perfect teacher. What we want to have a look at is what makes a good teacher, and try and think about the sort of where we perhaps have our strengths and any areas that perhaps we need to sort of to focus on. And I want to try and sort of demystify the teaching process and help you understand, if you like, that there are many qualities that you've already got which will make you fabulous teachers anyway. I want to think about the teacher's role, so before, during and after the class. So a lot of people think that teaching is just about being in the classroom, but I want to sort of share with you some of the things that we need to think about before we step into the classroom and also after the class is finished. And clarify any questions. So as I said, as we're going through, please, please, please feel free to put any questions in the question box for me, and I will do my best to answer them. So I do expect participation, so I'm hoping that you're all listening and you're going to. So I wanted to sort of ask, first of all, why you're doing the course. So what is it that's made you sign up to a UK-TEFL qualification? It is incredibly useful, but I want to ask you guys why you're doing it. So can you just pop a comment into the question box about why you're doing the course? Be honest. So if it's for your UCAS personal statements, that's fine. Just share with us why you're doing the course. Yep, so the TEFL certificate is really, look, teach in South America. So some people want to have it already for teaching. That's great. Some people perhaps just want the certificate because it looks good on the CV. Absolutely. There's a reason it looks good on the CV, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Any other comments? Oh, a language teacher yourself. Lovely. That's great. Gap year, travel, fun, fabulous, traveling, teaching in different countries, good, studying English, travel to France next year, lovely, qualification, oh, okay, and somebody who did their CELTA 20 years ago, wonderful, absolutely, it's fabulous for traveling, teaching, marvellous, working in other countries, gap year, Private TEFL teacher, absolutely, Beth, absolutely. There are so many options. So I wanted to just share with you very quickly why it's so useful. All right, so first of all, oops, we're going a bit quickly there. So it is good for your UCAS. So if anybody is going to university, it is a great thing to put on your UCAS form, or if you finished with university or you're not interested in university, putting it on your CV is really good. And there's a reason for that, and I'll share it with you in a moment. Also, money. Let's be honest, at the end of the day, it's a job, isn't it? So it gets us money. So if you're thinking about traveling overseas, but it doesn't just have to be overseas, okay? If any of you are heading to university, you might be interested to know that about 34% of our students at UK universities are from overseas, and they're not English as a first language speakers. So it is quite useful to be able to offer private classes, as Beth just said, to people who have come over from other countries and who are going through university education. It's also great for traveling. So if you want to go over and do a gap year, or you're just doing some travel between sort of at university, or you're traveling as a midlife gap year, that's fine. It's a great thing to have and will get you a job. It's also really useful for working overseas if you want to go abroad for a longer period of time. As I said, I started for 2 years and ended up spending 20 overseas. But you can also work in the UK. You don't have to go overseas. So there are lots of opportunities in summer courses. We have a lot of people coming over normally. Obviously at the moment this is a bit tricky, but normally we have a lot of people coming from overseas to learn English, and there's a lot of summer work in the UK. Can I also say that there are lots of transferable skills? So I also, in addition to sort of teaching, I do a lot of work with companies and universities on sort of communication and leadership skills. And a lot of what I learnt in my TEFL sort of qualifications over the years are skills that I transfer to other types of training. It is very rare that you find a job where at some point you don't have to train other people. So when you join an organisation and you start moving up the organisation, at some point you are going to be asked to train other people. Everything that you learn on the UK-TEFL qualification is useful for training other skills as well. So they're really transferable. It's very rare as well these days that you don't work in an organisation where there are people from other countries. So the ability to understand how the problems that people might have with English, and the ability to grade your language and communicate with people from overseas is amazing, and is a really valuable skill for any job. And finally, you meet amazing people. So a lot of the people that you see in the photos, I'm still in touch with. So they let me know how they're getting on. They let me know how the qualification was useful to them, and it's really, really lovely. So it's an incredibly sort of enriching and very sort of exciting job to be doing. Okay, so I wanted to just sort of open to you guys. What do you think makes a good teacher? So this is my Tunisian students here. Please don't ask what they were doing. I can't actually remember. But what do you think makes a good teacher? Now, Andrew, I think you said good listening skills. Absolutely. You know, they're really important. What other characteristics do you think are useful for a TEFL teacher? Simon, that's a really good question. You've lectured part-time in a UK university and you're hoping to support overseas students. I cannot thank you enough for saying that. That's so important. And I'd be really happy to talk more about that with you as well. So what do we think makes a good teacher? So listening skills is one, says Andra. What else do we think is useful? Ability to engage, yeah. Patience, Hugo, oh my God, yes, yes. Patience, good communication skills. You've all come up with patience, good. A good leader, absolutely. Empathy, good, one of my favourite words. Flexible, absolutely. All of those things are really, really important. Connection, yes, all of those are really, really important, aren't they? Fabulous. So I just wanted to share with you a little word cloud. So those are some of the things that I think are important. Good class management, yes, absolutely. So you've got things there like inspiring, engaging, being able to influence, good listening skills, knowledge of your subject as well is always useful. You need to sort of enjoy it. You need to be enthusiastic. One of the things that I learnt over the years from studying neuroscience as well is that we infect people with our emotions. So when you go into a classroom and you've got energy and enthusiasm and lots of patience, you will infect your students with that. So pretty much your good classroom management starts with being able to manage yourself. If you go into a classroom and you're feeling tired and stressed and quite sort of pessimistic maybe, you're going to infect your students as well. So it's really important that we manage ourselves well so that we can manage our students too. One of the things that I think is really important on here, you've all mentioned patience, and I love the fact that you think it's patience with your students. It is, but you need patience for a lot of other things as well. So you might remember the photo of the train station at the beginning on my photos. That is there because quite often you need patience even when you're sort of traveling. So it might be that you've been asked to go to another city and there's only one train per day. That's what happened at this particular place. I was examining and I needed to go from one place to another. There was one train. You need patience with the people around you. So you might need patience with the school staff. You might need patience with parents. And you need patience with yourself, okay? So sometimes you think that you've prepared a wonderful lesson, you put it out there and the students don't get it. Don't beat yourself up, be patient and just have a look at how you can sort of change it and help them. And the other thing that I really wanted to flag up as well is a sense of humour. It is important to be able to laugh at yourself because you're going to get into situations overseas where you perhaps put your foot in it. You use a phrase in the local language and it turns out that they've been, you know, perhaps winding you up. We've all been there, it's fine, just stay patient with a good sense of humour. So some good qualities there, brilliant. Now, I also wanted to ask you what you thought was important before the class. As I mentioned, people often think of teaching as being within the classroom, but what do you think we need to do before we step into the classroom? And again, pop your comments into the questions control panel, and let's have a look and see what you think. Planning, yes, Leslie. Starters, preparation, a good lesson plan. Oh, good headspace, Chloe. Absolutely, yes. You've got to be in the right frame of mind. Icebreakers. Oh, somebody's been doing their good. Create a lesson plan, organise. Yeah, absolutely. Energy, all of those things are really useful. You find me doing my exercise at the beginning of the day because that sets me up with good energy for the rest of the day. Also coffee. I'm a total caffeine addict in the morning, so unless I've had coffee, it's not going to happen. Now, a lot of you have been mentioning their icebreakers and what have you. That's lovely. Let's have a look at some of the things that we can do. So before the course, so even before the lesson starts, before the course, I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the research that you can do. And you'll see there that I've mentioned talking to other teachers, and talking to the DOS, the DOS. Now, the DOS is a very important figure in any school, and that's the Director of Studies. And the Director of Studies is the person who matches the student with the class and then assigns the teacher to the classes. They are an invaluable resource to you. They generally have a lot of experience. They've been teaching for a long time. They have a lot of postgraduate qualifications. They know the local scene. They know the resources. Do not be afraid to talk to your Director of Studies. They will give you lots and lots of information. Talk to the other teachers who've perhaps been there a little while. It will help you research your class. So when I say research your class, think about, you know, asking why they're coming to your English classes. You know, what's their purpose? Are they prepping for an exam? Are they just doing it for fun? Are the parents involved? Are they doing it for work? So just getting a little bit of information about your class, sort of age range, how long have they been learning English for? Also, check out the classroom. So before you start teaching, actually go and have a look at the classroom. Have a look at the setup. Think about the activities that you've got in mind. Are they going to work with the setup? You know, think about where the board is. Is there just a whiteboard? Are there smart boards? Is it just a blackboard with chalk? So have a look at that. Think about the technology that's involved in the classroom. Are there any sort of pictures on the walls that might be useful to you? Okay, so just go and have a look at the physical layout of the classroom and check out the available resources. By that I mean sort of books, things that you can photocopy, visuals, etc., etc. So there's lots of things that you can do before you even start the course. And then before the lesson, you're quite right, you all sort of said, think about your sort of research, your preparation. So research your TL. Your TL is simply your target language. So what is it that you're going to teach that day? And we're going to do more of that as we go through not today's webinar, but in later sessions, we'll have a look at how you do that. Thinking about preparing your resources, so making sure that you've got the right number of photocopies, making sure you've photocopied the right page in your book. We've all been there, where we photocopied something we thought and then we got into the classroom and we've discovered we've photocopied the wrong thing. Make sure that you've got your lesson plan, and always, always, always get there before the students and set up. There is nothing worse than rushing in at the last minute, trying to set up when all the students are already in there. It's not good for your credibility. It's not good for your stress levels. You will find it a lot easier if you're there first. The other thing I would say about that as well is when you get there early, you have a chance to talk to the early comers as they're coming in, and you will build, as Andra says there, a relaxing atmosphere. They will feel a lot happier and more comfortable with you if they've got a chance to talk to you beforehand. Okay, so what about during the class? What do we do during the class? Teach, Anna, of course. What else are we going to do? So pop your comments into the question box. What do we do during the class? Games, support, yes, a bit of gamification there, yes. Making sure that if you are doing games, that they are both, games are very engaging, but making sure they're effective as well. So making sure that the game supports the language, the learning. Have conversations, engage with your students, teach and encourage. Yes, so Safia, good point there, getting the students to talk more than you do. So making sure that your teacher talk time is less than your student talk time, unlike on this webinar where I'm doing all the talking. Encouraging and not over-critical, mingle, good, listening, phonics. Oh, nice, Beth. Yes, more on that in the future. Perhaps introducing a bit of culture, do lots of eliciting. Thank you, Simon. Good, yes. Okay, so all of those things we need to do. So here's a list. This is not exhaustive. This is what I've had a think about what I do. So some of you have mentioned icebreakers, absolutely. And again, we'll be looking at those a little bit later on in the course. So you'll see that I've got there getting to know you, warmer, energizer, icebreaker. You'll see them called all sorts of different things in different books. Same. presenting your target language, making sure they have lots of practice, and then they're able to produce. So those are our 3 P's of lesson planning. And as I promised, more on that in a later webinar. Monitoring, so making sure that you're going around and checking that people are on task, or if they've got any questions that they can grab you. Answering questions, so you're there to make sure that that happens. You're looking ahead, so while they're on a task, you know, you need to perhaps check your lesson plan if you can't quite remember what's happening next. You might need to move things around. I love the fact that we all go through these wonderful teaching qualifications and then we find ourselves moving furniture, photocopying and laminating. 3 main jobs of a teacher. So you might need to sort of move desks around, you know, be prepared for that. Encouraging, absolutely. Feeding back. So feeding back, making sure that you've told them what they're doing really well, but perhaps some areas where they need to, you know, tighten up or make some corrections. Classroom management, keeping on time, reviewing and checking learning, setting homework, making sure that we're showing all of those wonderful characteristics that we sort of identified earlier as a good teacher, and staying calm, because then your students will be calm. Okay, now then, that's great. What about after the class? What do we do after the class? Apart from head to the nearest coffee machine. Any thoughts? Reflect, yes, Georgina, absolutely. All good teachers reflect. Yep, make notes on how the class went, Beth. That's one way of reflecting. Certainly at the beginning when you're getting used to it, think about what worked and what didn't. Yes, ask questions maybe. Absolutely. So here's my little list. Okay, so maybe you need to mark your homework, reflect, so you can do that. Some of us use a written journal. Some people just do it by talking to other teachers, some people just do it in their head, but it is important to reflect. I often do it at the gym when I'm sort of cycling. I have a little think in my head. Might be that you need to talk to the parents about anything that sort of popped up in the class. You might want to talk to parents, so talk to the DOS as well. So maybe there's something you want to share with the DOS. Think ahead, so this is great, we got this far in the class, so what does that mean for the next class? Don't forget to congratulate yourself as well. Okay, so as teachers we can get very sort of panicky that you know, perhaps it didn't all go absolutely perfectly, but let me let you into a secret, something that somebody told me a few years ago, which has been a lifesaver. The students don't know what they don't know. So if you've forgotten to cover something in class, the only person who has access to your lesson plan is you. So if you've forgotten something, don't worry too much. Okay. Also, you can stay in touch. So if you've moved on, if you've left the school and you're, feel free to stay in touch if you want to. Sometimes in places like Spain, your students sort of, you know, will invite you out for dinner, for drinks after the class. Entirely up to you whether you go. It's quite a nice way to meet local people. So, but it's very optional. Okay, so just a little thing about why being prepared is so important. So what happens, there are ways to support students outside of class, Simone. Yeah, it's a really good question. And you can do that sort of using homework, you can do that using the parents. There are lots of different ways of doing it. Making sure that you don't perhaps get too involved yourself, because what you want to do is you know, make sure that you're building learner autonomy as well. But you can do a little bit of that in the class so that they're supported outside. Yes, you're less stressed during the lesson, Leslie, if you're prepared, absolutely. Spending time, how do you, making sure that if you're spending time with your students outside of class, that they're the ones who are over 18. And there's nothing wrong, it's up to you how much you share. I sort of perhaps don't share very much at the beginning of a course, and maybe by the end they know a lot more about me. You need to sort of think very much about what you want them to know about you, and that's very personal. You are more confident, yes. So, oops, so sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. So, couple of things here that are really important. If you are prepared, you are credible. They will believe you. They think that you know your subject area. That's really important. It manages your own stress, and it also manages the stress of your students. Okay, they will be less stressed if they see that you are not stressed. Gravitas. Gravitas is a really interesting one. Gravitas is knowing that you are at least 3 questions deep in your subject area. Okay, so they might ask you a question, then another question, and another question. You should be able to go 3 questions deep in your subject. That gives you gravitas. Gravitas then leads us on to confidence. If you have gravitas, you will be confident. Okay, and again, thinking about infecting your students. If you're confident, they'll be confident. It gives you the space to be engaging. So if you are well prepared, you're not panicking. It means you can be present, effective, and engaging with your students. It also allows you to differentiate. So not all of your students are going to be at the same level. So if you've done some preparation, you will make sure that you've got sort of exercises that deal with students at different levels. Helps you to stay on track, so you've done your timing. And the other thing that's really important, everybody, is that you can use your lesson plans again and again. So if you've prepared once, use it again. And again, one of my wonderful teacher trainers many years ago in Asia said to me, he said, never ever spend time designing something you're only going to use once. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever had. Okay, and I wanted to just talk a moment about credibility as well. So you'll notice that at the beginning I gave you a very quick introduction to who I am and some of the things that I've been doing. One of the things about going overseas is as soon as you open your mouth and introduce yourself, you're building rapport, you're showing everybody that the lesson is ready to start, but you're establishing straight away that you're a fluent speaker, okay? And when you do that, you have to remember that a lot of people have paid money to come to your class, and you might be the only contact with a fluent speaker that they have. And that's really important. So they might be doing English with local teachers, they might be spending a lot of time with their grammar, but you as the fluent speaker are something a bit different in their lives. So it's really important to demonstrate that quickly. Show that you know your subject. So again, going back to that gravitas, make sure you're well prepared, you're at least 3 questions deep. However, this is really important, be honest. If there's something you don't know, and there will be, there are things that people ask me today and I still don't know the answer, be honest. I shall share with you my favourite expression, which is, oh, that's interesting. That gives my brain time to think, gives my face time to sort of compose itself. And you can do a couple of things. You can either say, I shall check that out and come back to you. Or you can set it as a homework task for everybody. Or you can sort of stop in the middle of the lesson if you think it's really, really important, and perhaps get people to do a little bit of research. So there are lots of different ways you can sort of deal with it, but do be honest. Okay, do not try and make things up. Show that you're open and approachable. Okay, so when you're overseas and traveling, it's really important that they see that they can come and talk to you. And I think my biggest piece of advice for having spent 25 years traveling around the world is stay curious. You remember at the beginning I said that one of the best things about this job is meeting amazing people. When you stay curious, you hear some just fantastic stories. And when you're in Saudi Arabia and you meet a lady who convinced her village that she wanted to marry for love and not as an arranged marriage, and because she held true to her values and achieved it, and she changed everybody else's life, so all of the girls in her village now insist on marrying for love. How can you not love a job like that? So stay curious. You will learn some amazing things. And I wanted to sort of open it up to any questions. So does anybody have anything that they would like to ask? That's a very sort of quick overview of what to expect, I suppose, in terms of being a teacher, in terms of being a TEFL teacher. So if anybody has any questions, pop them into the question box for me. I'm really happy to answer. That's such a good question, Beth, and lots of people ask that. No, I've been to places like Vietnam and I don't have a fighting chance of speaking Vietnamese in any shape or form. We have to remember that we are there to teach English. And they've paid good money to hear you speak good English. They don't want you murdering their local language, which is generally what happens. And we'll see in the next session how we can actually do that, so you don't need to speak the local language. Okay, translating is a different skill. They don't want to hear you speaking their language. They've not paid to hear you sort of speak their language, so absolutely not. The most common challenges, Chloe. I don't know, it depends what age you're dealing with. If you're sort of dealing with people who are sort of prepping for an exam, then often they're quite stressed, and you need to deal with that stress. And there are lots of really great things out there to help people manage stress. And in fact, in exam preparation classes, that's something I do as part of the class. Maybe if you're teaching children, the most common challenge might be seeing where they are in terms of their socio-emotional ability. So are they ready yet to start sharing? You know, when they're very, very young, they have no personal space. So the number of times I've taught sort of young learners and they've pretty much been sat on top of me, and they're very honest as well. So I'll get things like, Miss Anna, I don't like your nail varnish. Okay. Or Miss Anna, you looked much nicer last week with different makeup. So that can be quite challenging. Really good question, Simon. Most of the principles stay the same when you're teaching. So high student talk time, low teacher talk time, lots of engaging activities. There's loads of things you can do online as well. There are some really great resources, such as if you come across somebody called Russell Stannard, who was my very first director of studies. He does a lot of how to teach online using sort of different, you know, sort of techniques and programs. So that's, I'm going to type that in the chat for you. So if you have a look for him online, then he should give you lots of my best experience. I've had loads, Georgina. They're all good. They're all different and they're all fun, and they all bring me lots of like really great stories, and you learn just as much being a teacher as you are teaching them. Yes, I have had lots of difficult cases to deal with. I'm my particular favourite. And you'll see that I run sessions with lots of leaders on how to have difficult conversations, and that was sparked by one of my teachers, doing a text on extremism with a group of Saudi Arabian students. And the text dealt with how most extremists came from Saudi Arabia. So that was an incredibly difficult situation. We ended up sort of with the ambassador involved, and we nearly ended up with a diplomatic incident. So, but you get all sorts of things. It really teaches you to handle everything. Tips to handle difficult students, Laura? Yes. You need to go back to basics. So you need to root cause what the problem is. So is it a problem of language? Is it a special education need? Is it because they want your attention? So you need to find out what the root cause is. Lots of patience, lots of talking to the student, perhaps involving parents if they're still young learners. I generally find that asking lots of questions with them and then listening and doing a bit of deep listening, so listening to everything that they're not telling you as well, is a really useful way of doing it. TEFL is a full-time job, Hugo. Absolutely, you can do it part-time or full-time. That's one of the beauties of it. I do it full-time. No, actually, Safia, I don't. I have a very simple 3-rule process with young students. So it's basically stay safe, be safe, be respectful, be kind, and everything fits into one of those 3 golden rules. And we do things like circle time at the beginning of the class, and we talk about sort of incidents during the week when maybe they've broken one of the golden rules. So yeah, there's loads of things you can do with them, which is really good. I talk to the manager of different motivations, so it's really interesting, and get them to share. And then they find out about each other and you build rapport. Yeah, give some space in your class to doing that. Yeah, absolutely, Danny. I love teaching. So as I said, I was going to do it for 2 years, and we're now 25 years in. So I don't think I'm going to give it up anytime soon. I've been back in the UK for about 3.5 years. I don't discount going overseas again to live, but we'll see. Guys, thank you. That's really. Do you have any other teaching? Yes, I do. I do have a PGCE, but I did it a lot later in my career. I also have the Cambridge Delta. So I'm a qualified teacher trainer with Cambridge as well. But I did all of those much later in my teaching career, when I was sure that I was going to do this sort of long term. Yes, good question. Lovely. Wow, that was some good questions there. Wonderful. So just a little next time. So we're here again on Wednesday, and we're going to be looking at how you can teach English without using the local language. So I think that was a question Beth asked, which was fabulous. Absolutely. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit on Wednesday. So you're very welcome to sort of make a note of any questions that you've got and perhaps share them with me next time. This is some of my lovely students. So these are some of my young learners, some of my Chinese young learners. And I just wanted to say thank you very much, everybody, for spending time with me this morning, and for some really, really great questions. Let me just hand over to Lachlan to wrap up for us.
Anna, brilliant. Thank you very much. Really interesting. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to all those that attended as well, listened in and asked questions. As I mentioned before, and Anna's just mentioned at the beginning, we'll be running these sessions twice a week. The next one is on Wednesday at 10 a.m. and will be my favorite, the foreign language lesson. So in the meantime, have a good week, stay safe, and we hope to see you on Wednesday. Many thanks.